Rome stands on the edge of a knife, the greatest empire the world has ever known, now leaderless, its fate hanging by threads of steel, betrayal, and ambition. Augustus, the eternal prince, is dead, and with his passing, the shadows of power awaken. Rome had never felt so fragile. The city's golden spires gleamed under the sinking sun, but beneath the grandeur, whispers of fear and ambition slithered through the marble corridors of the Senate. Augustus Caesar, the eternal prince, the architect of Rome's glory, was dead. And with his death came a vacuum. An empire leaderless, its people uncertain, its legions restless. The first to sense opportunity was Lucius Cassian, a senator of cunning mind and cold heart. In the shadowed halls of the Curia, he paced, fingers tracing the intricate patterns on the marble walls. "A power," he muttered, "is not given. It is taken. Then Rome trembles at my grasp." Every glance he cast was calculated, every word a weapon. Around him, fellow senators whispered of loyalty and honor. But loyalty in Rome was as fragile as glass, and honor even more so. Meanwhile, Marcus Valerius, a general hardened by campaigns along the northern frontiers, rode into the city through streets thronged with citizens mourning the loss of their prince. His armor gleamed with the dust of distant wars, his eyes sharp, scanning for signs of unrest. He was loyal to Rome, but loyalty in this city of shifting alliances could become a burden or a curse. He had won battles, yes, but the fiercest conflict awaited him here, in the heart of the empire. The air was thick with tension. The forum buzzed with rumors. Some said Augustus had named a successor. Others whispered of secret plots to seize the throne by violence. Merchants whispered while patricians plotted. And far above, the Palatine Hill loomed, silent, watching as if Rome itself held its breath. That evening, an urgent messenger arrived at Marcus's quarters. Panting and wide-eyed, he handed over a scroll sealed with the mark of the Senate. The general broke the wax with a grim frown. Inside were orders that no man of honor could obey without hesitation. Troops were to be recalled from the provinces, the city gates reinforced, and all legions placed under the command of a man whose loyalty was suspected best. Marcus's heart sank. Betrayal lingered like smoke in the air, and the first sparks of civil war threatened to ignite across the empire. He had trusted men who now moved in shadows. And worse, Lucius Cassian, smiling in the light of the dying day, had already begun to pull strings that would soon strangle the city's fragile unity. As night fell, Rome's skyline glowed with torches, but the light could not pierce the darkness creeping into hearts of men. From the northern gates, distant drums echoed, a warning of legions moving, not in celebration, but in conquest. Marcus mounted his horse, eyes fixed on the horizon, knowing the dawn would bring more than sunlight. Somewhere in the city, in corridors lined with marble and deceit, a single dagger glinted under the torchlight. The stage was set, Rome's greatest battle. For power, for loyalty, for survival, was about to begin. And in the shadows, Lucius Cassian whispered, "By morning Rome will kneel or bleed." The sun rose pale and blood-tinged over Rome, casting long shadows across streets where fear had taken root. Marcus Valerius rode through the city gates, inspecting legions arrayed in tight formations. Soldiers gripped their spears and shields, faces grim beneath polished helmets. The air smelled of sweat, smoke, and the tension that precedes war. A general, a young centurion, called, approaching hastily. The Eastern legions marched faster than expected. They've crossed the Tiber and burned 3 villages along the way. Marcus clenched his jaw. Then we meet them before they reach the forum. We cannot let Rome become a battlefield for ambition. He turned, eyes narrowing at the distant Palatine Hill. Somewhere in those halls of marble, Lucius Cassian plotted. And every move the senator made threatened to months of Marcus's careful diplomacy with the provincial commanders. In the Senate, Lucius smirked, fingers tapping a carved desk. "If Marcus Valerius thinks he can protect the city, let him try," he murmured. "A Rome is mine to command, not by sword, but by fear and cunning." Around him, allies nodded silently. Assassins had been placed in strategic positions, spies reporting every move of the general. Lucius understood one truth. Wars were not only won on fields of battle, but in the hearts of those who chose whom to trust. Meanwhile, outside the city, Marcus orchestrated his defenses. Cavalry units lined the roads, archers positioned atop the walls, and siege engines were prepared for any assault. He met with his lieutenants in the early morning light, a map of Rome spread across a stone table. "If the Eastern legions breach the northern gates, we fall," Marcus said. tracing a finger along the roads. But we can force them into the valley, narrow confined. Their numbers will count for nothing against disciplined formations and hidden reserves. A lieutenant spoke up, voice tight. General, and what of Lucius? Reports say he may betray us from within. Marcus's eyes darkened. Then he will not have the chance. Rome will not be taken by treachery while I draw breath. By midday, the clash began. The eastern legions descended like a tide of steel, shields clanging, horses screaming, banners snapping in the wind. Marcus's forces held firm, forming a deadly phalanx that turned cavalry charges into shattered lines. Arrows darkened the sky, striking down enemy soldiers with precise, merciless accuracy. The ground shook under the charge of war elephants from the provinces, a terrifying reminder of how far ambition could reach. Amid the chaos, a messenger arrived breathless at Marcus's side. General, the city gates, Lucius's men have taken the eastern gatehouse. He intends to let the enemy in. Marcus's eyes blazed with fury. So it begins, betrayal and battle entwined. Sound the horn. Hold the gates at all costs as the sun dipped again, smoke curling into a crimson sky. Marcus rode toward the northern walls, knowing the fight was far from over. The city trembled, soldiers screamed, and the first of Rome's inner sanctums were under threat. Somewhere in the shadows, Lucius Cassian's laughter echoed. A chilling reminder the enemy was not only outside, but within. Cliffhanger. The northern gates shuddered under repeated assault, and Marcus realized that by dawn the fate of Rome might rest on a single, impossible choice. Fight for honor, or survive at any cost. Dawn broke over Rome, casting a cold gray light over streets still littered with smoke and debris. The clash of swords had echoed through the night, leaving behind the groans of the wounded and the bodies of the fallen. Marcus Valerius stood atop the Palatine Hill, chest heaving, eyes scanning the battlefield below. The city he loved trembled, but it had not fallen. Not yet. The eastern legions had been repelled, driven back by Marcus's strategy and the unyielding courage of the city's defense. Yet the cost had been immense. Roman banners lay torn, soldiers once proud, now scattered or dead, and the city's gates, symbols of imperial might, were scarred with fire and iron. Amid the chaos, Marcus saw Lucius Cassian retreating toward the Senate, his expression a mixture of rage and disbelief. The senators' carefully plotted betrayal had nearly succeeded, but Marcus had anticipated it. With the help of loyal guards and quick-thinking centurions, Luce captured before he could escape the city. His ambitions, forged in shadows and deceit, ended at the very heart of Rome. Oh, Marcus, a wounded soldier, whispered, gripping his arm. We held them. Rome, we held it. Marcus nodded, though his eyes betrayed exhaustion. We did. But remember, victory is only a moment. Power always calls, and ambition never sleeps. The Senate convened in the aftermath, a mixture of fear, relief, and awe hanging in the marble halls. Senators who had once plotted against one another now bowed to Marcus, not as a dictator, but as a savior. The city had witnessed the fragility of loyalty and the perils of unchecked ambition. Rome had survived, but its scars would linger. In the streets, citizens emerged cautiously, eyes wide at the ruins of familiar buildings. Mothers clutched children, merchants counted their losses, and priests murmured prayers of thanks to the gods. The people had seen the cost of power struggles firsthand. Their faith in Rome was shaken, yet not broken. Marcus rode through the city, observing the faces of his people. Each one told a story of fear, resilience, and the unyielding spirit that had kept the empire alive. He dismounted at the forum where a statue of Augustus loomed silent and eternal. He touched the cold marble and whispered, "Our Rome lives, but not as you knew it. It belongs to all who fight for it." That night, as the city settled into an uneasy peace, Marcus reflected on the lessons of power and betrayal. Ambition, he realized, was both a tool and a weapon. Loyalty could inspire greatness, but it could also ignite destruction. And Rome, vast and eternal, would always teeter on the edge between glory and ruin. Empires rise, leaders fall, and the blood of the brave stains the earth. Rome endured, not because one man held power, but because courage, loyalty, and the will to fight survived, even the darkest hour. Yet in the silence of victory, one truth remains. Ambition never sleeps, and the struggle for Rome's soul has only just begun.